Okay, we'll try and give this a shot. See if this is any better. It may or may not be, but I'm hoping it is. Anyway, anyone might be there. So I guess I'm just going to go ahead and get started. Let's hope for the best, right? Hopefully I can be heard just fine. So I've got this Intellivision here. This is a Sears Video Arcade or Super Video Arcade, also known as the SVA for short. Okay, yep, I've got it back up and running. That's what I'm trying. I just don't know how smooth it's going to be, although I've tried to make some reductions and optimizations as much as I can. I usually stream on Facebook because for whatever reason that seems to work a little better, but it's also capped out at 30 frames and obviously a lower output resolution as well. So I thought I'd give YouTube a try and also have a few more people be able to see what I do and work on. So anyway, so the main issues with this SVA, I've had this for well over a month. Now, to be fair, I have purchased it knowing it was a non-working unit. Yeah, see, YouTube's telling me it's having issues again. Yeah, quite laggy, I understand. I'm not real sure what I can do about that. Huh. Quite laggy, but still fine. I'm not sure, well, which part's laggy? Just choppy video or what I'm saying and what happens may be out of sync? Which I would sort of okay live with that. I'm just not sure what other settings I can change here. I've already reduced the bit rate down quite a bit. I've set the audio down as well. But the only other things I might be able to do is to reduce the frames from 60 to 30, so I'm only trying to transmit half as much. That would probably be better than nothing. So choppy video, but the audio is perfect. Okay. Let's see. Let me go ahead and try. Okay, we'll see if that's any better. So what I've done at this point is I've gone ahead and just reduced my frame rate from 60 to 30 frames so that I'm only trying to transmit half as much. And we'll see if that helps at all. All right, so to get back to what I was saying, so this SVA, I've had it for a little over a month. I got it knowing it wasn't working in hopes that I might be able to get it working. And if nothing else, it would be a good parts unit. Additionally, the case shell on this is slightly better than mine. It does have some nicks and scratches. Yeah, see, the stream looks to be working a lot better now. Yeah, well, that's because I reduced it down to 30 frames. For any that are curious, I record all of my videos at 4K 30 frames in most cases. Occasionally, I will record at 60 frames, but that's a pretty rare instance. And then, of course, in editing, that gives me the ability to zoom in on things a little bit better for detail and what have you. Anyway, so what are the problems with this bad boy? So it doesn't work. Kind of. It's not in as bad a shape as some. Most of the Intellivisions that I have received that are non-working are just flat out deader than a doornail. They might fire up with a black screen or a white screen or a blue screen, basically a solid color. This one doesn't do that. Occasionally it will give me the black screen or a solid color, but most of the time, and by the way, I have an actual MTE 201 test cartridge right here. This is the version 3 cartridge. When I plug this in and fire this up, what I will see is I will see the test graphics start to appear, but they will be corrupted. And I can tell because I've seen this diagnostic test so many times. I can tell that it's trying to tell me there's an error condition in the middle of the file. I have to troubleshoot my own unit soon. I hope the stick and the exec are fine. Well, I can tell you this much. Let me go ahead and tell you what I have done. It's because I've been going back and forth with this crazy thing for several weeks, off and on. First of all, I can tell you that none of the major IC chips are the problem. And normally when you have corrupted graphics, the stick is the first thing I go to. That or the additional graphics ROM chip. Not the problem. It doesn't matter which IC chips I pull and put into this thing, I get the exact same condition. So if you guys have ever seen what that's supposed to look like, and I'm going to try more experimentation here. I don't normally stream too much, so I'm doing a lot of this on the fly. I have to apologize for that. Let me see if I can get a video overlaid on what the diagnostic should normally look like. And I'm not sure if you guys will be able to hear me because I just turned off to the side, so I do apologize for that. But I'm going to give this a shot, so give me a moment here. Also, the laptop I'm using, while it's a fairly decent laptop that I'm streaming from, it's not the most it's not the most powerful thing on the planet. So it could have some issues there. So let me get this added in. All right, I'm going to try to expand this out a little bit if I can. It's interesting, this window wants to be ginormously long. I'm not sure why. It'll teach me, won't it? Let's get in here. Let's try to set the properties of this up so I can figure out why it's wanting to do what it is doing. Oh. So that. Yes, I'm just streaming this on YouTube. Sorry, I'm sitting here trying to figure out why I can't get this window to resize to the proper shape. It's being difficult. Okay. It's because I'm not actually playing the video. So therefore it doesn't really know. If you guys got some ideas, I'm all for it. Well, I mean, if I'm not able to get this, then I'll just have to try to figure it out. Anyway, the point is, I was just trying to show. Hold on a second. Stream's current bitrate. Well, it was giving me no data. Did the stream stop? Are you guys still able to see anything? Okay, hold on. Well, OSB still says it's streaming. So I'm not real sure why it's doing that. Okay, well, anyway, be that as it may, I'm just going to go ahead and just show you what it's doing. Again, I wanted to describe the process and give you guys a better idea, but best I'm going to be able to do for right now. And I'm not sure if I can get the camera focused on that properly or not. You guys don't want to see that. That's my plate of where I throw everything. All right, what we need to do is get the camera raised up a little bit. Apologies for the messy workbench. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get this out of here for a second. Oh, don't you dare power off. Okay, so I just turned it on. We'll see if we're able to see anything. So you can see it kind of flickering a little bit. We do have mostly a colored screen. Let me try to reset it and see if I can get something different. Okay, there we go. So these are error conditions that it's trying to display. Now this is the graphics ROM test, which shouldn't look like this, but you're going to see it still scale up as if it's possibly working. And now this is the controller test screen. So I know that the main logic is obviously functioning. And down here in this little spot here, I can occasionally see it flicker and change. That's the timer. So the timer's still running. That tells me that the CPU and everything else is functioning. What is happening here is strictly related to something with the graphics output. Now we are going through RF here. But again, I've already changed out the stick. I have changed out all of the major IC chips in this thing, and I pretty much get this. Now I will tell you, this is not consistent. I could reset this and this will look slightly different, but still be not right. I'm going to try to reset it again real quick. So there's the error messages that it's trying to tell me what's wrong, but I can't read them. There's the graphics ROM scroll up test, which again, we don't really see it doing it, but it is essentially trying. And then here we are back to the controller test, which is similar, but there's some slightly different coloring going on. So yeah, it's goofy, and I don't have any logic behind it. So that is what we see. Sorry, I'm reading on some stuff now. But yes, can see everything just fine. I've only ever streamed with OBS one time, but I don't recall any actual difficulties with plug-and-play windows beyond positioning. Well, I've messed with it before, and the problem I have with trying to use the PMP is that for whatever reason, the scaling just wants to be locked. I have not figured out why, when I'm trying to resize something, why it is locked down. That is what it is. Borked RAM chips, perhaps. They can cause strange problems that masquerade onto other issues from time to time. So when you're talking about the borked RAM chips, I believe you're talking about the actual static RAM chips themselves. This is an actual SVA, so it actually has one of the white colored PCB boards in it, which means it uses the slightly different and unusual GTE chips. I'm going to get it off of the screen because we don't need to see that anymore. And we're going to angle the camera back down again. Hey, at least I'm wearing pants, right? Shorts, actually. It's pretty warm here at the tower today, although I've got it nice and cool up here where I'm at. Okay. Get my lights readjusted a little bit. So, in case it is the RAM, I actually have some new old stock actual GTE. That one's pretty messed up looking on the printing. 3539s right here. There's technically 3 of these in this older model Intellivision. I've got a tube of 6 of them, new old stock. So I will try this as one of the last options, but the other thing I've done, or I'm going to do, is I purchased sockets of just about every size type I'm going to need, because what I'm going to do today, because one of the things that I think could be happening, because changing out the chips doesn't seem to affect anything at all, one of the possibilities that I was thinking of is that it could be just simply bad connection to the IC chips. So one of the things I'll do is go ahead and desolder the old sockets, because it's using those older style ones, and then try replacing them out with some new ones. the new dual whites. So, and yeah, I purchased extras because, hey, you can never have enough IC sockets on hand, especially odd sizes, like 22 pin and 18 pin. So let me get my 201 out of the way. And got a Coleco Telstar Pong. Probably needs new caps, as all of the white elements in the video output stretch and bleed like crazy. And your skegs locks up when you try to press return. I don't have any experience with the skegs, although I know it's basically just an 8-bit. It's just an XL, like anything else. But yeah. Okay, so it looks like we're streaming fairly decently now, I'm hoping. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and crack this thing apart real quick. I think I already have it partially dissected inside. Again, I've been working on it on and off. And I'm going to unplug it. That would be smart. Okay. Get the on-off button removed. Flip it over. And get my number 2 Phillips. You guys have seen this number 2 Phillips in, I couldn't tell you how many videos. That is one unique thing about the Sears version of the console versus everyone else. It has the center screws are different length from all other Intellivision Model 1s. And that is because of the controller storage being designed in the front like it is. If you were to use the standard longer screws, you'll actually cut through the plastic tray. Ask me how I know that. But it would be really, really nice if I could get this one working again. Because it's almost there. I mean, you know, I know the logic is good, and that's half the battle. I also have checked the power too, by the way. I have actual working power supplies, and I've tried swapping that out as well. Yeah. It's just been kind of a difficult child. Okay, I guess that's all the screws. All right, let's get this top cover removed. And this one, and that's the other thing, of course, I am not the first person inside of this. When it arrived, it actually did still have the RF shielding on it. I've already removed it because, again, I've been inside of it, but it is only has 2 of the screws for the controller tray. So, those don't fall out on their own. So, yeah. It needs a good cleaning, and I haven't really done anything as far as replacing anything. I did try to replace the ribbon cable on it because the original was kind of goofed up. So this is a replacement that I reinforce with Kapton tape just to be on the safe side. This one does have some sort of what looks like a bodge ceramic disc capacitor that's been installed on the Player 2 controller port, which I've never seen before. But yeah. So yeah, here we are. It's the, like I said, the more white color PCB. Actually, I'm really fond of this PCB for a couple of reasons. Number one, it just looks sharp. I just like the clean look of this white face to it. Also, because of the way they designed it, the traces do not have any coating over them. These are all exposed traces. Now, normally that's bad, but it actually makes it real easy to troubleshoot and to attach a probe to, because I can basically just find anywhere along the trace to just put the probe on and check it out. So yeah, it still has all the original capacitors. One interesting thing I had not seen on any other Intellivisions, at least not these models, is all the 0 ohm resistors on this are just using these ceramic, almost like a higher wattage type resistor. This one's actually nuked a little bit and shows some evidence of melting, but it's just a 0 ohm resistor, so it's basically just a jumper. That's really the only other odd thing about this. I actually have a Sylvania GTE model, and the main board on it is a little bit different in that instead of using standard electrolytic caps, it actually uses some really early tantalums. So, sounds like a Shaggy Dog story. Perhaps. So these are the 3539s. These are the static rams. You got a high and a low, and then there's also one here. I'm not sure his exact function. I'd have to pull up my schematics real quick. I don't normally have to mess with it. But I know it's not the stick, and I know it's not the CPU. That much I know for a fact. But again, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take the main ICs out one by one. I'm going to get rid of the old sockets and replace them out with some new fresh 40-pin dual wipes that I just got in the mail recently. And no, I didn't actually order these from DigiKey or Mouser. I usually do I do get a lot of stuff from those places. I actually took a chance and ordered this from a different place in California that I thought was kind of sketchy based on their website and address information. But they came through with the shipping and my stuff is here. So yeah, let's see, there's my 18 pin. That's my 22 pin, which is going to be for these guys. And then these are 12s, right? Yeah, I've got the 12 pins for some of the 74X series logic that's on here. And I've already changed some of that out, in fact, and no change. So, yeah. All right, so I'm going to start with the CPU, although I don't think, you know what? Let's not start with CPU. I would start with the stick, but I've actually already replaced the socket on that one. I don't know if you guys can see that, but I have. But I'll pop it off anyway. Take a look, see if anything might have changed. Oh, I also changed out the 3906s here. Those are new 3906s because they can be a headache as well. All right, so that's the stick removed. And one other thing I'm going to do before I get too much further into this. Story of the screw links. Oh, that's what you were talking about. Well, okay, so my personal daily driver Intellivision is a Sears Super Video Arcade. However, it's not really a Sears. I got it a long, long time ago for like $2 at a thrift store. It did not work, but as luck would have it at the time, a coworker at the time gave me his old standard 2609 Model 1 Intellivision. So what I did was I just swapped out the main boards. Okay, that 40-pin IC socket looks really good, actually. I don't see anything wrong with that because that's new. So I really don't think that's the problem. And the pins on this are not corroded. They're pretty clean on the stick. So I don't think that's a problem. So I'm just gonna pop that back in real quick. While my workbench may be messy, I did clean the mat a little bit before starting today. So I usually do that. That's one thing I do, is I will clean the mat. Let's go ahead and I'll put the CPU into a better socket. There we go. Pins on the CPU also look good. Don't see any corrosion on that. But yeah, it's using the original, these fairly thin. They are dual wipe. I'm sure they're good, but either way, we'll just change them out. And I will probably run out of solder today. That'll be a new one. Use Jamco in the rare instances. I actually checked out Jamco, but they did not have dip sockets for these weird sizes like the 18 and the 22. In fact, Mouser didn't have them either, and I think they carry them, but they didn't have them in stock. I would have had to have ordered them, and I was like, no, not going to work. Actually, I got these from what's the name of the place again? I want to say, I have a microphone a little more over to where I am. Pemco, also known as Phoenix Electronics, out of California. And the reason why I thought they were kind of sketchy at first is because their address points to a storage facility. How do you figure out the Intellivision models? SVAs are 2609s, but what about other Intellivision models? Okay, so actually there's a couple of different ones. First of all, the 2609 is just the generic term for the basic Model 1 that we are all used to seeing. You know, the Tandyvision, the SVA, and of course the Mattel version. They're all just 2609s. Even the SVA is just a standard 2609, with the exception that it has a customized ROM chip on it. I want to say it might be the main ROM. I can't remember, but one of the it's a little bit different because it won't show the Mattel logo on the screens. It'll show Sears instead, I believe. So there's that. But having said that, I've seen different revisions of the boards. This is typically the oldest revision, or an older revision. Number one, by the color of the PCB. Again, it's white. All the traces are pretty much exposed on top of the board and easy to get to and easy to solder to as well. And then other important thing is the use of the GTE, the 3539 static RAMs, SRAMs that they use here for the memory. I've only seen the older boards use these. The newer ones, I wonder if I've got that main board available. I've got another parts board. They use a, let's see, and these are 22 pin chips. I believe those use an 18 pin, maybe a 14 pin. I'd have to double check it. I think it's an 18 pin IC instead. So it's a different type of chip completely, not pin or, you know, compatible necessarily with what we have in here. So that's why I've got a tube of some replacements that I purchased recently. The last of what this particular vendor had was all 6 of these. And I only paid for 3 of these, but they sent me all 6, so I guess they were desperate to offload them. Which is fine. I'm sure I'll find a use for them at some point in time. But anyway, and then you've got the newer models like the Intellivision 3, the Super Pro system. Those have a different board layout and design, but I think they still basically use the same main chips. And I'll be honest, I actually have an Intellivision System 3. I don't think I've ever cracked it open. My other console's PAL, so I don't know 100%. I wanted to ask because since my unit developed a fault, and since my other working unit is PAL, I wonder if I can use those chips to fix the SVA. Yes, you can interchange the chips between a standard 2609 and an SVA, provided they're both PAL boards or PAL versions of the board, which I'll be honest, I've not seen a PAL Intellivision, but I know that it is different. One major difference that I've been told is that all the NTSC systems, we have this color, excuse me, we have this color IC right here, U10, and it literally says color on top of it. So for the RGB mods, for instance, that I've been installing recently in these, most of the signals that the RGB board uses come directly off of U10, off the color chip right here. Although a lot of those can be traced back to the stick as well, but just because of convenience, I just go here. Anyway, I'm going to get this off of here. So what I was doing was I was just adding some solder to the pins to make it a little easier to remove them. My laptop sits off to the side of me, so I apologize if I don't immediately see your messages. And if these fumes get to be a little too much, I may have to turn on my fume extractor, which will generate some additional noise. Make it hard to hear me, though, if I do that. These sockets are probably fine. They don't look corroded or anything. In fact, this board is pretty clean, aside from dust. But as I've already changed out all the main IC chips for the most part and haven't had any luck, and even tried changing out some of the 74X logic chips with no change, that leads me to believe it's either some loose connection between these IC chips and the rest of the board, or worse, I've got a passive component that's failed somewhere causing this. I say worse because if it's a passive component, that can be a little trickier to find and troubleshoot. And in some cases, depending on the component, I would probably have to remove it out of circuit to really test it. Even some resistors can give you erroneous readings. if they are, you know, wired up in series with other resistors. So let's see here. Just getting this in. Okay. Really strange it failed on me like that. So I have to be careful. SVA is NTSC. Okay, so your Sears unit is NTSC and the other unit's PAL. Okay. In that case, I do not know if the chips are going to be interchangeable. My guess is they may not be, because I'm sure there's got to be some differences. That would be my phone. Probably get a copyright strike. One moment, guys. Yes, sir. My apologies there. Had to take a phone call. I'm on call, and that was the active field technician. He's running into some issues. Anyway. Rex, are you talking about my FR300? Yeah, I'm a big fan of that thing. Good. We got that issue resolved for that customer. Yeah, the FR300. It's actually been replaced out now with a newer model called the 301. But it is a lifesaver for me. That was the pin that was holding me up there. Just like that. So there's the old socket. I'm going to go ahead and get this sprayed off. Also, you guys couldn't see it, I'm sure, but I did discover not one, but two things that I hadn't seen. There were two pins on that CPU that were shorted against each other. And I thought, in looking at them before, they were supposed to be because it looked like it had come that way from the factory. But their traces do not attach together. So, yeah, that's the thing. Part of me will be tempted to fire this up. I might do that after I just get this socket replaced. Yeah, now these two pins are supposed to be shorted together. I can see that. There's a trace that goes between them. But not on this side, and not the pins that were up here that were doing that. Yeah, I'm a big fan of my 300. I'll be honest, I use it for everything. Even if I'm just doing a couple of components. Um, why not? It's here. It makes it way easier. You do have to keep them clean though. All right, so let's replace it with a brand new socket. Brand new 40 pin IC. And I'm just going to have to get solder ready to go. My iron. Right now I'm just tacking in all the corners. This is getting more difficult to hold on to do this. There we go. I also want to make sure I'm not touching or have my finger on the other side near the pin that I'm actually soldering down, which I will find real quick if that's the case. Okay. So I've done that more than once. That's not a fun thing. I have two Dallas chips I need to replace, and a P4 motherboard that needs all of its main capacitors replaced. Without a Hacko, I've let those projects collect dust. Yeah, I've actually got a, not a 486 main board, but I've got a nice little Pentium. It's actually the original Ivory Tower PC, and it's in a full-sized Ivory Tower, full-size case. But it's a Pentium motherboard. It's an old Asus TX97E. And I've got it paired with a with an AMD K5 in it, I believe. But it hasn't been fired up in 5 years. So I'm sure the CMOS battery is probably dead. Luckily, it doesn't use a Dallas time clock. It's got a standard 3902 coin cell holder on it, which is nice. But unlike most PCs, if the coin cell's bad, it won't even boot. It won't even post, which is kind of unusual. I needed some new IC socket 40 pins anyway. I use most of them on Atari systems. This is the one that's got the trace between both these pins. So both of these pins get attached. The rest of these are unique. Do not bridge or attach to any of the others. Well, they might internally inside the IC, but not externally on the traces. Clean that up a little bit. And although I did replace those 3906s, I did not cut the leads. It amazes me on these old systems how tall the leads are on the back side. I sometimes wonder if they even bother to clip them at all. Some of the Atari, especially some 7800 mainboards, are just ridiculous on how long the leads are. The controller port side I kind of understand, but not just normal passive components. Don't understand that. HP Vectra, your main 486 keeps its time as there is no obvious battery capacitor or real-time chip for that to function that I can see. Does it perhaps have a super cap? Like the TurboGrafx? That's a possibility. Okay, make sure everything looks good on that. It looks pretty good. We can pop this back in again. All right, so that's the CPU and the stick are now both in brand new sockets. Maybe the graphics ROM up here would be a good one to do as well. I don't know, part of me's tempted just to test it right here after I changed out those pins in the CPU or resocketed that. Yeah, let's give it a shot. We only need just the barest things to be hooked up to it, so. But it will be nice if I can get this one and perhaps another one I have on the way working, because I would like to add RGB to them and then perhaps offer them up to people. I don't normally work on consoles and pre-mod them and sell them, but if I've got spares that I don't have any use for, then why not? I'll get something for them. I don't need 2 or 3 RGB modded Intellivisions. Help if I plug in the AC. Okay, everything else is in place. Let's get the test cartridge back. Inserted. Make sure I'm on channel 3. Because that switch has a tendency to flip back to 4 whenever I remove these boards out. I don't know why. Let's get the RF modulator cable hooked up. I'm not going to expect any change whatsoever on this, but all right, let's see what I get. Blue screen with corrupted graphics. Pretty much the same thing I had before. Let me do a quick reset. It's funny, when I hit the reset, I swear I can see the graphics. There's the error conditions, but I can't tell what it's telling me. I can't read them, they're just lines. Yeah, it's exactly the same as I showed you guys earlier. No change, no difference. Yeah, it's the same. So, it wasn't those weird shorted pins on the CPU. I don't believe I shorted them whenever I was adding solder. Oh, maybe I did. Okay. So, stick, CPU. They have new IC chips. Or not new chips, but they've got new sockets. Let's go ahead and do the graphics ROM. And we'll probably do those static chips as well. If nothing else, I'll at least get them in sockets so that I can try swapping things around. I want to say I've already hit this with heat. It looks like I've already done these pins. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and add some solder to the other IC chips in case I need to remove them. And if nothing else, I'm at least getting some fresh heat in case there are any cold joints. Speaking of which, true story, different Intellivision that I serviced very recently worked great here. And I send it back. Client gets it. They plug it in. Almost immediately they have issues. Specifically, it seems to lock up. Whatever game they're playing will lock up after a few minutes, or in the case of the LTO cartridge, it would reset back to the LTO menu on whatever game they were playing. So I had them send it back to me. And the only things that looked suspect right off the bat, because I hadn't changed it beforehand, was the 12 ohm power resistor on the power board. It was looking kind of flaky. Like literally, the ceramic is chipped off in places on it. Replaced that out. Tried it again, same results. So I then thought, well, maybe there's just a loose connection from the power ribbon cable. We know how reliable those things are. So I actually replaced it, the whole connector, with a JST 5-pin connector, male-female combination with some wires that I soldered, actual stranded wires that I soldered to the mainboard and ran that. Same results. That then led me to the one place I should have done in the first place. It's stupid 3906s. I actually saw it when I was adding the solder to them to get ready to remove them to replace them. It looked like one of them had a cold joint on it, and what was probably happening was when those transistors heat up and they get very hot, it was probably separating or marginal on its connection, and that was causing it to freak out. So yeah, I replaced out both of them anyway as a pair just to be on the safe side, and sure enough, it was working again. If you always expect the worst, you will either be pleasantly surprised or at least not surprised. Well, in this case, I'm not going to really be either way. I originally bought this as a parts unit regardless, because at least the case was in better looking condition than my personal. But um, when I actually went ahead and tested it and I saw that I had partial life, at least enough that the CPU is working, the main logic is working on this thing. That gave me hope. It gave me some good hope. I'm just going to attach this to this cap. I think it'll stay around that better than it will that controller pin. At which point I was like, well, maybe I can fix this. And here we are. I've been at this thing for quite some time, off and on. There's the graphics ROM. Now see, now that actually pops out of the sockets real easy, which makes me wonder if some of these sockets aren't loose. So I don't know if I want to even keep these on hand. I mean, they're kind of cool looking. They're kind of unusual, unique. They're original, but I don't know in what kind of condition they're actually in, if they're any good or not. Like I said, that popped out of there pretty easily. Trying to remember, I want to say that as of tomorrow, I will have had this 301 for about 7 years, I think. Now, if the Hecko US model are exactly the same, then it's a non-issue. I even use a Sega 1601 power supply for my Japanese Neo Geo AES. Yeah, I believe you can do that just fine. It's the input voltage going into the console and the polarity that matters, not the transformer. So you could easily, you know. In fact, I do that. I actually use Sega Genesis. I was using Sega Genesis power, Model 1 power supplies on my Roland sound modules that I would get from Japan, because it's cheaper when you get them from Japan in most cases. Anyway, yeah. Snap right off of there still. All right. Stay on there. Okay. Looks pretty clean. Not too bad to me, but clean it up. Well, some of the traces under here look a little sketchy. I'm going to break out the meter and see if they're... See if my continuity's good. It might just be the coloring or the lighting on here. Let's see here. Let's get the meter out. I've got test probes on it right now. Take those off. Just didn't want to use the original Neo Geo power supply as it was configured to eat 100 volts. And yeah, well, that's absolutely correct. In Japan, they use 100-volt incoming house current versus our 120 we have here in the States. Um, but having said that, I would not recommend this. But my Japanese Turbo Duo is actually using its Japanese power supply of 100 volts on my surge strip, and I've been using it that way for about a decade, and it's been fine. But if it ever blows up on me, the power supply, not the console would be fine. But yeah, if that power supply ever blows up on me, I will. I've actually got an adapter that will allow me to use a Genesis power supply with it. It's just a size adapter, not the voltage, I think, or the polarity. I think is the same. Maybe not, but I purposely bought it just for that, just for checking. Okay, let's see here. If any of these traces are as sketch as they seem. Okay, that one's good. I'm just checking the pins that I can see are connected to parts of the stick. I really don't think these are the problem, but checking it out all the same. Let me check this one, right? That's good. Let's see if this trace is any good. Okay, that's good. This one goes to here. That's good. Sure, that disappears. Goes underneath the static RAM. I wonder where this one goes. Supposed to connect to both of those? Guess I'll find out. We're going to go ahead and put a socket in there as well. This one actually looked fine. I don't think this one's a problem either. Well, that's why, because those two chips they share a trace on the bottom. I guess if nothing else, it's going to be a really clean parts board. All right. No point in overburdening the regulators. No, I'm with you. I'm not saying you should do that. I'm just saying that's what I did, and that's what I've been doing, and so far it's been fine. But again, if it ever blows up on me, I've got an adapter for my Turbo Duo that I can use a Genesis power supply safely. Or I could just take the barrel jack off of it and replace it with a standard 2.1 by 5, so I don't have to use an adapter. And reverse the polarity. Okay. Those are in. It's tacked in. Let's go to it. When this spool of solder runs out, it might actually be the first actual spool of solder I have used all the way to the end. Most of the time I will use them pretty close, and then I'll try a different brand or a different type, and I'll like that better, and I'll end up just switching and using that one. That's exactly what happened here. I had an old roll of Kester I used to use when doing my arcade chassis repairs on monitor boards. But it's not so good for this stuff because it's got a lot more lead in it. Requires a lot more heat. So it's not as conducive to use on the small traces and pads, thin traces and pads at that a lot of our old classic consoles tend to use. Intellivision's no exception, although I would say the ColecoVision's probably the worst. Boring. Little tiny bridge of solder. Don't know if that was there originally or if I added that by accident. Sure, ends up pretty clean on this as well. So, I don't think we need to do anything with that. That's a much better fit. Test it again. Smoke is a bigger issue than merely touching it. Okay, hold on. Let me back up here. Can't afford a Hacko right now. Just need to find the best place to order one of those. I can get it within 2 weeks shipping. Are you using leaded solder? If so, I would consider using gloves. Yes, it has some lead in it, but it's largely tin. It's a largely tin alloy. And I actually have my fumigator here, and it does a good job, but it also overpowers my voice whenever I'm trying to talk. So I will live with it for now. Actually, this solder is pretty funny stuff. I don't know what they put in it. I'm sure it's the rosin core that's in the middle of it. It has a really sweet smell. It does. It has a really sweet smell. It's kind of weird. And I think it's just a, what brand is this? It's just an MG Chemicals. Yeah, just an MG Chemical solder. I got it from the now defunct Fry's a long time ago. Fry's Electronics, 3 or 4 years ago. So, but yeah, as far as leaded solder goes, I've been using been soldering a long time. Some people already know this story, but I actually got my I actually learned how to solder. Not doing electronics, but doing stained glass windows. When I was 10 years old, my stepfather and I attended a summer class, basically, on how to do stained glass. And it was open to all ages, and it seemed like a fun thing to do. And he was really into it for a while. My stepdad was. He made quite a few windows. But that solder was almost strictly leaded solder. We didn't wear gloves. We didn't wear aspirators, nothing. We're still alive, as far as I know. Okay, so let's see if anything has changed. I'm going to predict no, but we'll see. My solder spools are all from Radio Shack, and I have a little tube from RSR that I got in college. I had some solder like that in a tube for a while. I don't remember what it came with. It may have actually have came with my 936 and 907 wand, my Hacko station wand. I've had those for over 10 years now. And, well, it's a little different than I had before, but I've seen it do this screen also. It's still corrupted. It's still not right. It almost looks like the sync is off kilter at this point, which is kind of weird now that I think about it. In fact, let's check out something real quick. Let me check the clock crystal on this. Make sure it's at the right frequency, because that is adjustable on the Intellivision, and at least tell me if my crystal's bad or not. Let me get my frequency counter ready to go here. So, what do we got to check for that? Well, I got to have my lead on ground. And we got to check pin 10 on the controller port. You can also check, I believe, pin 15 on the color chip. But it's best, and it's recommended in the manual, to check it at pin 10 on the actual cartridge port, because that's the furthest point where that goes. And the way that these are numbered, starting from this side, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's right there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. I've got to plug my frequency counter in. It's old too. What is this? This is it's a Simpson frequency counter, model 710. I got it as part of a batch of test equipment, along with my oscilloscope, for like 55 bucks. So pretty happy with that. What do we got? It is off a little bit. I mean, it's still registering 3.5798 megahertz, but that is off. Gosh, what's it supposed to be? I want to say it's supposed to be 39784. I think is what I'm supposed to be getting. So let me try and adjust that. It's right here off of capacitor C2. It's a variable capacitor. We're adjusting down. We're adjusting down. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be 3578. It's 35794. Stop bouncing. 3579594. Okay, that's pretty close. Well, it's kind of all over the place. That's interesting. It shouldn't be. It should be pretty steady. I wonder if if this is going bad. That's really really all over the place. Might indicate a problem with the crystal. I don't think so, because I think I actually tried replacing that already as part of my other troubleshooting with this crazy thing. This is going to be trickier to test because I've got a cartridge in it now. Okay, now I'm back to the screen I was getting before. So yeah, I mean nothing's changed. It's just exactly the same. The controller screen looks a tiny bit different, but it's still not right. It's still corrupted looking and screwed up. So all right. Well, turn that off for a second. Probe out of the way. Okay, so next thing to try. They're really the only things I haven't been trying. Let's go ahead and try changing out one of the static ramps. Let's see if we get a different condition. One of these guys. I've got sockets for them, so these chips are not in sockets either. Soldered straight down to the board. That's not going to stay that way. Although it will make, if I decide to RGB mod this, it will make placement of my RGB board a little more challenging. Murphy's Law dictates the smoke and fumes from your solder must go directly to your face. I'm not the only one that happens to, right? Just human breath is a magnet for those things. Might help boil it down to lesser components being an issue. Just for the sake of elimination, maybe swap some major ICs and RAM with a known working system. Actually, Rex, I did that. My personal SVA is sitting behind me because I already swapped its chips out. That's how I knew that the main IC chips were not the problem. So that's actually been done. I did that in the past. And when I didn't get any change in condition, and in fact, using the chips from this into my SVA, the SVA worked fine. So I know the main IC chips on this should be fine. Let's see, let's get a Sharpie here. That would be the timer on my meter. It might be time to clean the iron, the desoldering iron out a little bit. So let's try. Oh yeah. Ignore the dead moth. Okay. would be my wife telling me that she has food for me downstairs. Will be any change. Let's see what we get. Nope. Same thing. Exact same thing. All right, let's try replacing that chip. I can see a little bit more of the controller screen than before. I can actually make out the 7 and the 8 a tiny bit on the numeric keypad. Still not right, though. I've kind of seen it do that before. So again, really just... We're almost, but not quite at the definition of insanity. So let's try replacing this chip. With one of the new replacements. Right? I can't tell if these are new or if they're old or not. They have really shiny leads, but they almost look like they have solder on them. Okay, so that's replacement. Let's see if we get any change at all. Not really any different than before. It's pretty much the same. There's the graphics ROM screen, and then it'll switch over to the controller test screen, and that looks worse than it did earlier. So again, I don't think these static RAM chips are the problem. I really think I'm fighting a stupid passive component somewhere on this board, a diode or something that's not doing its job. It's very frustrating. Or maybe it was the other, maybe it's the other static RAM, the one below it. Guess we'll find out. I'm going to put a socket on that one too. I'm going to try replacing this one, put this one in a socket, try replacing it, see if anything changes. Not, I'm going to take a break for a little bit, grab a bite to eat. And we'll come back to this. Now the solder they used on this doesn't smell as good as mine. It has a real onion-like smell. Careful solder the socket on this one because some of the traces on the bottom side of this one, the coating has come off, so they're exposed, and it would be really easy to bridge them if you weren't paying attention. Nothing changed before. Let's go ahead and try putting a new chip in. Yeah, well, I do actually have desoldering braid, and I do use it from time to time. It's right here. In fact, because it's getting thin, I actually purchased another um, another fresh supply. So I do use this. I use this mostly for the S&D stuff, and that's just to get rid of any bridges and things like that that I may have introduced accidentally. Holy crap! Well, okay. Oh, don't do this! Don't do this! Come on, you were just there. Okay, so we're getting a lot closer here. I'm going to show you guys what we have. It's not perfect, but it's better than I have ever seen it before. So let me rotate my camera over and get it raised up. This out of the way for a second. Okay, so it comes and goes, flickers in. The controller circles still don't look right, but the keypad is fully legible now. I can now see what this says, and the color bar is mostly there. And I can read the timer now. That is a drastic improvement from what I had before. No, what happened? Failure at test L, test M, test A, test E, F. Is there anything it's not unhappy with? Okay, that is still a vast improvement from what we had before. Okay, so apparently when I shake this, or when I jostle it, we've got a loose connection somewhere. Where's it at now? We can just figure that out, right? Whoa! That's a completely intact stick test. Okay, I still have these failures. Some of the failures are normal because this is a Sears unit. Oh my gosh. Come on! Okay, so yeah, we're looking at something's loose somewhere at this point. I'm not sure which or where. Wiggling the cartridge definitely doesn't like that. Well, you know, I did tell you when I was trying to read, I wasn't getting a very stable clock read. It was fluctuating quite a bit on the clock frequency. Okay, that's almost perfect. By the way, this black line that you see here, ignore that. That's actually a fault in this LCD panel. That's why it's on my test bench and not being used somewhere else, because it's got this segment of bad pixels in the middle of it. But the rest of it is almost there. Okay, so that's almost a visible. That's almost right where it needs to be, and it's stabilized a little bit. Okay, turning the clock or turning the crystal is just changing the color hues as I would normally expect it to. Doesn't really seem to be affecting the where it's loose at. Well, it's a stable image for now, but I don't know how well that will remain. But here's the important thing. Now that I've got that far, I should be able to put in my LTO and actually navigate to a test that recognizes the Sears ROM. Let me get a controller port plugged in. You guys probably didn't notice, but I had the controller ports unplugged on this. If I can get this steady enough to use the LTO to load up a different ROM for diagnostics, that will help. Tight getting in there. Okay. Okay, the LTO screen is up, but it is corrupted. The title screen's a little corrupted, as we can see. But the text is good. Well, most of the text is good. The words exit and config along the bottom are hosed up. All right, let's load up this test cartridge. This one I properly recognizes a Sears unit. I believe 01 is for Sears. There's the stick. That looks proper. That looks good. The characters are still a little off. We've got audio. I know you guys can't hear that, but the audio's working. Okay, that screen looks okay-ish. That looks okay. That looks okay. Yeah, all parts okay. All parts are not okay because the LTO screen was not correct. That screen was correct, though. Well, now the words select, up, and config are readable. The fonts do look a little different because this is a Sears unit. I'm assuming that's why. Let's see. Let's load up something that should show the startup screen. Night Stalker does show Mattel, but it doesn't show the other stuff. This is actually the controller that came with it. The controller that it came with actually works pretty well. I've been using it as a test controller ever since I got this. Okay, Night Stalker's working. The colors don't look quite right, though. That might still be due to the crystal timing. LTO menu's good. At least it's coming up properly now. Okay, well, I tell you what, I'm not going to call it good just yet. I'm going to probably put in fact, I'm going to just do that right now. I am going to load up one of the Mattel demonstration cartridges and just let this thing burn in for a little bit and see. Because I still don't have a warm fuzzy about it. Because again, I did see graphic corruption still on the original 201 test cartridge. But this is the most legible it's ever been, so it's definitely an improvement. All right, well, thanks guys for hanging out. Like I said, I'm going to let this thing burn in for a little bit, see what we may. I might try. This was the last static RAM I took out of it. So this one's already suspect because replacing that chip has gotten us to where we are right now. But I might try popping in this old original that I popped out first just to see if it gives me the same condition or if it's something different. That would be good. Yeah, that actually looks fine. Okay, there was a little flicker there, but I don't know if that's the console so much as the just the weird wonky sync signals that are virtually non-existent on the television. So I'm not too worried about that. Okay, cool. System shorting itself out after being powered up and running for a few minutes points to a capacitor issue, but this is all I can do. I've yet to do any hands-on troubleshooting mode. Wait, so what did you change that got you this far? Okay, so Kster, here's what I did. I mean, I finally got to that point, but basically what I did was I went ahead and replaced both of the high and low static RAM chips right here. These are 22-pin chips, and these are unique. This particular one, the 3539s, are unique to the older model Intellivisions, like the Sylvania GTEs, which makes sense because this chip is actually made by GTE. It says so right at the top. But this was the second of the two chips. I'm not sure if it's the high or a low, but basically replacing this one out got me to this point. Now, it's not 100% because, as Rex will tell you, when I first fired up the test cartridge after this, I still had some graphic corruption, but I could at least read the screen. And then it looks like over time here, as I've left it up and running, it seems to, well, I'm actually running off my LTO cartridge right now. It seems to have improved itself. So it could probably need capacitors. And I see a lot of color fluctuation. Did you guys just see that water turn pink? One RAM chip, removing the solder bridge? No, I don't think it was the solder bridge. I think that chip's bad, but I can verify that by popping it back in and see what happens. But I'll do that a little bit later. But yeah, the water changing color, that is definitely something up with the crystal. More than likely. It might even be the, did it just die on me? No. It's just loading up the next thing. Also notice how the text is off. This should be more centered. It says Intellivision Intelligent Vision or something like that. So that's all unique to the Sears ROM set. And like I said, the font's a little bit different than how it would normally look. Anyway, that's still a vast improvement from what I had before. So yeah, I'm going to let this burn in, and we'll come back to that. And I'll let you guys know. I'll probably update in comments or something, or perhaps in the video description, what, if anything, I do or find further. But yeah, this is basically using all of its original parts now. This is the original power supply board that it came with, the original transformer, and yeah, so really only just that one video SRAM chip seems to have been the main culprit. And I kind of was already leaning to that. That's why I bought this tube of replacements, because I had already replaced everything else as far as the major ICs without a change. But very cool. So yeah, I'll just let this go. Thanks again, guys. We'll have to do this again. I don't do too many live streams, but I thought as part of the celebration, as it were, for finally hitting 1,000 subs, this might be kind of a cool thing. So thanks again, guys, for hanging out. I will check you guys out another time.